FM radio station, using our voice to rate your choice. Stay tuned.
90.8 Hills FM, in partnership with Task Force for Music and Arts, presents TaFMA Thursday. Stay tuned to listen to local artists every Thursday from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. on 90.8 Hills FM.
Hello listeners, this is RJ Lian and you are listening to TaFMA Thursday on 90.8 Hills FM, the voice of change. I hope you are having a wonderful time and enjoying the music we play for you. It's time now for a TaFMA Thursday, a show where we celebrate the amazing talents and achievements of artists from Nagaland and beyond. This week, we have a very special guest who is a journalist, an author, a poet, a publisher, and a cultural enthusiast. She is Rita Krocha, the founder of PenThrill Publication House. Ladies and gentlemen, a distinguished writer, she has been honored with the Kohima Press Club Impact Journalism Award in 2022 and is a recipient of the National Foundation for India Media Fellow in 2021. Her literary journey encompasses 3 collections of poetry, including A Bucket of Rain, Yearnings, and From the Broken Art, as well as a captivating Naga folktale children's book named Shoposho. Her influence extends to co-authoring several books, notably Echoes of Spring and The Chaksangs, A Window to Peck District. Her works have been published by The Hindu, The Indian Express, The Wire, Scroll.in, and The Quint, and she currently also writes for The Morang Express. Her latest work, titled That Rituals, an insight into the Naga ancestral religion, will appear in a British multinational publisher's Routledge's upcoming book, That Undying in Northeast India, Indigeneity and Afterlife, edited by Parjanya Sen and Anup Chakraborty. She has also written a chapter on the culture and textile traditions of Nagaland for UK-based Halley Publications Limited that is in the process of being published. In November 2013, she also founded PenThrill Publication House, which has been instrumental in unearthing literary talents, particularly from Nagaland. PenThrill has also published works of aspiring authors from the neighboring states like Manipur and Arunachal Pradesh. It has 75 publications under its imprint as of 17th August 2023. Rita Krocha is truly an inspiration for many young writers who want to pursue the passion and share their stories with the world. She is here with us today to talk about her journey, her challenges, her achievements, and her future plans. But before that, let's listen to a song by Thamsa Clover. The song is Sally Forth. Stay tuned, because right after this, we will be listening to an insightful conversation as we bring you our guest host RJ Gugu, who will be conversing with Rita, the TaFMA Thursday literary luminary of the week.
I worry some nights, reminiscing the last of you. Cold shivers inside every time I dream of you. We're healing inside, and I want you close. We're living a lie, and it's got us hoaxed. But I watch you grow. Got my feet held stone for you. I'll bear the cold. Our lives rewind, the past replays, and we drown. This cup keeps pouring, a love so daring, but you drain me out. I let it all out. I'll sell it forward now. Don't step on my ground. I'll sell it forward now. The stars have a light, a fateful event we prayed. we're close to breaking ends. The buses arrive and I'm breaking down. I'm leaving behind a mess I can't fix, but I watch you grow. Got my feet held slow, Sally forward. We'll make it home alone. Our lives rewind, the past replay, and we drown. This color keeps pouring, a love so daring, but you drain me out. I let it all down. I'll sell it for it now. Don't step on my ground. I'll sell it for it now. And I'm leaving behind till I get older and it colder. I let it all down. I'll sell it for it now. Don't step on my ground. I'll sell it for it now. Let it all down. I'll sell it for it now. Don't step on my ground. I'll sell it for it now.
Hello everyone, we're back to the 90.8 Hills FM. This is your RJ Gugu Haralu, and I'm back with a very interesting person whom we will listen to. She is none other than Rita Krocha. Many of you would know her because of her writings, and also not just the writing but she as a person who has taken a plunge on taking a path which many of our people wouldn't have dreamt of, or perhaps dreaming but haven't reached there yet. So today we have an opportunity to listen to her. Find out who she is as a person and the person behind the very publication based here in Kohima, and someone who can also help us pronounce it correctly, PenThrill Publication. And Rita, welcome to our community radio.
Thank you so much, Gugu, for having me.
So Rita, let's say, what has driven you to write, and how can we learn from your experience?
Yeah, so growing up, I didn't even know that I wanted to be a writer because nobody talked about writing as a profession. And it was only during my graduation that I started writing poetry, and there was no stopping since.
Poetry, well, that's something very difficult for me because I've tried my hands. And so what makes a poetry? Even is that even the right way to ask?
What makes a poetry? So I always say that we come from this. We have this legacy of storytelling where our forefathers sang while working in the fields or celebrated their numerous festivals, even when they mourn the death of a loved one. And that's how I think a lot of us have inherited the gift of writing poetry. And despite people saying that there is no market for poetry, and also that they do not understand poetry, I think when it comes to the Naga context, a lot of people still write poetry because from my experience of running a publishing house in the last few years, I've also seen a lot of manuscripts coming in which are all poetry. And out of the books that we have published in these last 8 years, I think poetry accounts for more than 50% of our publications.
That's amazing, 50%. Which reminds me, so the folklores that we have, right? So it's not a new thing, right, for us Nagas to actually be writing poem. Like you said, there's a history behind, in our folklores that has inspired many of us, and also for generations, perhaps like you said, like I asked, I mean, how do you even write a poetry, and the inspiration that comes. So a lot has been there, part of our tradition and culture, right? And now that we get to hear from you that 50% of the publication is into poems, I mean, that's amazing. And that also shows that we may not be having formal training, correct? But the gift, that each one of the writers have inside them, I think your publication has also given that platform to make it visible, to be heard. So going back to the storytelling, what do you think can storytelling do to a community like ours?
I mean, as you are aware, we come from this oral tradition of storytelling where a lot of our stories are undocumented and unwritten. But publishing these books will be a step forward in also preserving the rich stories that we have of our land, because every village has their own village histories and stories, which a lot of us, a lot of our younger generation still do not know, like including myself. I still have a lot to learn. So, but the good thing is that we also have a lot of young emerging writers who are coming forward to have their books published and have it available on a larger platform.
I mean, that also speaks a lot how it is expanding, right? And how educational institutions are also getting involved. And can you also tell me the genesis of PenThrill? How did it start? I mean, I know, and a lot of us knows that you write. Now we know what inspired you, but we would also like to know, how did the publication house start? Because that's something very rare in our society, and especially a woman. So maybe you could share a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah, so I am a journalist by profession, and like I was mentioning earlier, I started writing only during my graduation days. And although my love for the English subject was clear from the beginning, and that's how I also took up BA in English literature, and subsequently pursued a master's degree in journalism and mass communication. So right after that, I started writing for a newspaper, and after working there for 5 years as a full-time correspondent, I quit full-time journalism to venture into publishing books with nothing in my pockets but dreams and my love and passion for books and reading alone.
So I mean, I think everybody has guessed by now that if we are to pursue, and for those who are pursuing their dreams, it's never an easy road, right? So, who have been your support system all these while, from the genesis of your journey to making your dream come true?
While pursuing journalism for full-time journalism for 5 years has given me an enriching experience, but no savings at all. So when I decided to start a publication house, like I had nothing in my pockets, like I was mentioning earlier, but it was my family, like, who have always been there. They are my strongest support system, and initially there were times where I did not even have enough money to print the book, the manuscript that we have accepted, but there would always be providence either from my family, who have been there throughout from day one till today.
So the success goes to the support from your family and those who believed in your capabilities also.
Right, absolutely, yes.
So do you think, as a woman, in our Naga society, it's very difficult because many are not privileged to have that kind of support, right, Rita? So what is your observation with the situation of our women who are crafting their own path for themselves? And we do see a lot of differences from the yesteryears and the generation of now. Could you just share your observation as well, not just on the writing aspect of it, but in terms of generally how our girls and women are evolving?
Yeah, I would say things have changed for the better in the present context. Women have come a long way, breaking barriers and taking up unconventional jobs, starting businesses which are, mostly considered to be a man's domain, like my friend Rekha, for instance, like
She's crazy.
yes, who is into logging. I mean,
Yes.
who would even imagine that a woman would take that up? But eventually, I think it's, if you have the passion for something, like, no matter what people say, regardless of the support system, I think you'll make it there eventually.
Yes, I think I'm very happy that you took Rekha's name. She's a crazy one,
She
and she's so cool. And I would, the first time when, of course, I heard about her when she was contesting, but meeting her personally, it just blew my mind away. And here comes a lady with her mekhala and 6-inch heel. All right, at one of our friends' wedding, and I just couldn't believe. And this is the lady who's into logging. I mean, seriously. I mean, you wouldn't imagine, right, to have a Naga woman in a modern daytime,
Right.
who is actually doing something extraordinary. It is extraordinary because we have never imagined our Naga women in that form, right? And she's taken a very unusual path, actually. So great. So that also means we need to celebrate each other.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, there's no question of empowering. Somebody told me that, well, you know what, Gugu, women are already empowered. It's just that they need to be ignited, Phuk mariwa lage, na, for the fire. Because the fire is already inside her. It's just that you need to awaken that fire inside her. Your journey as a journalist, as a publisher, and the responses, in the beginning, how did you channel, people to bring in the writings? Did you have to do something to have people get encouraged to write? Or maybe you could help us sharing a gist of that little journey?
Yeah, so the first imprint of PenThrill was a collaborative work among me and 3 other friends, and it's obviously a collection of poetry, given my love for poetry. And but following that, we never had to go out looking for manuscripts and asking people to come publish their books. But after the first imprint, I mean, the other books just followed. Like people just came forward with their works, wanting to have their books published. So I think it was just the lack of platform that was keeping, our writers back, but holding them back. But once they have realized that there is also a platform for them to get their works out, so over the years, like we've just been receiving manuscripts.
I mean, that's amazing. So when you receive manuscript, what is the process? So maybe you never know, there are potential listeners who would be potential writers. And through this experience sharing of yours, it will help them also to process it. Like for me, as I was sharing with you offline, that it has taken me a year to compile 30 pages of the story of my dad and me. And it's overwhelming because you don't know the process, and you also think, oh, maybe this is not the right way, or this is the wrong way. And of course we see a lot in the YouTube these days how to write a book, or there's so many informations available. But you here as a person, let's hear it from you. What is a basic process of writing and also publishing? In what form, and what does a publishing house do once we bring in the content?
As far as writing is concerned, I would just say that you have to keep writing, and of course keep reading keep reading as well, because I think to read books is equally important if you are to write a book. And as for publishing, ideally the first thing that we do is look at the manuscript and then decide whether to publish it or not. And once we have taken the decision, we take it forward from there.
Oh, so the publisher gets to decide whether it is worth publishing, correct?
Right.
So a lot lies on the So how do you measure that? Are you looking at the profit, or is it saleable story? Or what are the parameters to, decide those factors?
For me, it's not the market. Like the first thing is definitely not the market, but the quality of writing, the contents of the book. That's what we first look at.
And has there been instances where you had to reject a manuscript?
Yes, unfortunately.
So how do you say to your client whose manuscript has been rejected, even after inputs, and there's always a conflict of interest? So how do you resolve that?
Well, if I see a promising writer, like even given all the flaws that are there in the manuscript, we work together to make it, to fine tune it. But there are some books which are just not publishable. So those are the ones that we reject.
So is there a certain guidelines where the publishing house says, okay, these are the do's and these are the don'ts? Is there some kind of guidelines that every potential writer is made aware?
Not really. The only thing is we accept full completed manuscripts, and then we get back after reviewing it.
So this whole process takes about like how many months?
It depends, but once the full manuscript is in our hands, it should take about 3-4 months. Or sometimes sooner, 2 months, couple of months.
So what is the role of the publisher? So for example, I'm a writer. I wish I am. And I hope someday. So let's say I'm one of your new client, and I want to print a book. And as you've said, you look at the manuscript and then choose, give your feedback. And then if it is editable or changeable, etc., then you decide. There's a lot of process, right? It's not just dumping the manuscript and then the publisher does all these things. But also the fact that this being a very 8 years now?
8 years.
Yes, that's a wonderful 8 years, and 2 more years to mark a decade. And we wish you the best.
We're turning
for
9 soon.
Really? Yes. Awesome. So with a decade,
almost.
Yes, with that basket full of experiences, what is it that you find challenging in this journey that you have taken? And how does it motivate you, inspire you to do more? Because the more challenges we face in the dreams that we want to build, you become more innovative, right? So perhaps you could share that.
The biggest challenge for me was that I got into publishing with zero knowledge about business.
Oh, awesome.
Because eventually it's a business venture, and also I did not have enough financial resources or human resources as well, but I persisted on, and a lot of times I do not really enjoy a lot of other small things that are part of the process, but that ultimately being able to bring that smile on a first-time author's face is priceless. So because I don't have any employees, I'm a one woman run business. so I am the laborer who unloads books, loads them back, who distributes books in the stores, who does a lot of other things, that comes with the package. But over the years, I've come to enjoy doing them, and it was also difficult in the sense I had to learn everything from scratch, and I'm still learning with every book and every experience, every new book, every new author. The learning goes on.
This is very interesting, and I'm so glad we're doing this conversation, because starting from the scratch, and someone who have never been into business,
Right.
and when you have to start a business model and build your dream, and you're all alone, and I'm sure there has been times where you're like, enough. Oh, Rita, this is just wonderful. And especially, my dear listeners, it's so interesting. We're sitting outside in Kohima, and it's this wonderful weather, and this conversation is just amazing because we've just filled our tummy, and we're sitting outside in this beautiful lawn. And I think it's been a place where we haven't visited for so long. It's in our dear leaders, late AZ Pizzo's memorial, and it's a wonderful sight, beautiful weather, open sky, and a wonderful conversation with Rita, where we are learning the business aspect of it, but also a personal journey of building your dream. And I'm sure the listeners, Rita, they can also empathize and feel, because when we look back, this is your 9th year.
Right.
And when we go back to ground zero, there's a saying, right, that whenever we feel we want to give up, we must go back, reminding ourselves how we started and how far we have come. Because we're so busy building that sometimes we lose sight of why we even started right? And on that note, the writers, let's come to the writers. What kind of writers have emerged over the last 8-9 years of your experience?
So earlier I mentioned 50% of manuscripts, publications were poetry. We keep receiving a lot of poetry manuscripts. So I would like to believe we have been able to publish a lot of emerging poets from Nagaland. And one of the most exciting things was being able to publish the youngest author from Nagaland, who was 10 during the time she was published, and following the publication of her books, we have also been, more children writers have emerged, and we're also in the process of publishing another child author. And after the 10-year-old that we published, we also had another 7-year-old child author.
Wow.
So there is no dearth of talents, I tell you.
I think so. So how do you talk to these, young writers, when they come in with, the passion filled in, and what is the first conversation that strikes between, the writer and you?
So my first experience with the first child author was when her mother got in touch with me, actually. So they wanted to come meet me, and when they did on an evening, I still remember, like, she brought her stories and read it out to me. It was like a very unique experience, because I've never, had any experience like that before, and I decided then and then that I would publish her. So it's usually their parents who play an active role to encourage their children in pursuits of their dreams.
So we're also talking that with no technical know-hows, these are very organic writers,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
So that really shows the pool of talents that we have in our state,
Yes,
isn't it, Rita?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
okay, has Nagaland, I'm not aware, so maybe you can help me with this. Has Nagaland done a storytelling festival? And do you think something like this in the line we should be doing?
I'm not aware also
No?
about a storytelling festival.
But wouldn't that be more encouraging and opening the space? Or
Why not?
what would you suggest, since you're in this line and we have so many stories to share, not just the current writers, but many folklores that we have not explored yet. The books are piled up, dust is settling, and after the launch there's no story about it. I'm looking more into how to expand the usage of these books which has been written, published, and we need to be creative, to bring it in the open, because we still are not readers, right? And I think this is something that we've all been wrestling with, that we are not readers. So what is your suggestion, Rita? How do we inculcate this, our attitude towards reading, and what can be done in a place like ours where we can engage people to be interested in reading? What are your basic idea of that?
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, like we didn't know that a lot of writers existed until we started publishing them, and more came in. So that way, in that sense, like, I think even the culture of reading has improved relatively, because now I come across people who are reading books of our local authors, like when they were previously reading writings from outside Nagaland. And I actually met a friend recently who confessed that I no longer want to read books from outside, that every time she goes to the local bookstore, she looks out for any new local book titles, and if there is none, she feels disappointed and comes back. So I think that's a very encouraging thing to know, like that our own people being interested in our own stories. Yeah, and as for the storytelling festival, I think it would be a great idea
Yeah?
to start something like that and have our children gather, tell their own stories.
Because why I asked you that and I shared is because, and I'm sure our listeners would be interested in, we have Kitab Festival, these fairs, book fairs. And as a child in schools, we used to go for book fairs.
Yes.
And we get so excited because there are storytelling corners, people are, and we sit in the carpet, we get to listen. So that's something that I have experienced, but unfortunately it didn't make me a book reader.
Right.
But that helped in the listening skill, you see, because the imagination, of the person who's reading helps our imagination, as we listen more, because it's filled with expressions, dialogues, and action, and all our classmates are sitting, and it's a mixture of everything, fun. So I think I'm looking at more creative side of how we can engage and make our people get interested as per their age group, and something that perhaps Nagaland is yet to explore, right? It's the same thing with film. It's not just on the writing part, but film. We are not, okay, film, but at the same time, different forms of arts.
Yes.
And today we were just talking about with a couple of friends that appreciation of art is missing in us. Hence, maybe this is why we are not able to understand the talents and gifts every generation is having in them, and we are not able to create that platform for them. Hence, the berserk craziness on social media where our expressions are going haywired, But now we get to see that a lot of the young people are generating and focusing their energy in a more positive way, whether with government's help or no government's help, but they're doing it on their own now. And I think that resilience in us is really exciting, and the adrenal rush, of positivity is also helping others who feel that it's no point doing anything, right? So with little, energies that is sparkling everywhere, though I've started this conversation with the writing, this also speaks about the organic form, how we are evolving in Nagaland, Rita. So is there any concerns of yours apart from writing that you feel that you want to address? That you feel like, oh, that part, something should be done, or you feel that, oh, we should talk about more?
Yeah, for me, I feel very sad. Like, I'll speak in terms of writing because that's what I do and enjoy doing. Like, I'll tell you an instance where my grandparents used to live with us when they, in the last years of their lives, they lived with us for, I don't know, for four or five. I don't remember the number of years, but then, like, we used to have this storytelling session still. Like, my grandmother lived to be 104, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, so we used to, like, when she came to live with us, I started listening to her stories and had them written down. But only after they passed away, I also realized one thing. Like, I enjoyed listening to their stories, but I could have done more when they were alive, like documenting the stories and putting them in place to have them preserved for our younger generation to read and have access to. But so I think now, with the dying and passing away of many of our elderly in the villages, I think it's really important for us to go back to our roots and document as many stories as possible for our future generations.
Exactly. I think we sincerely have to do that. I mean, starting from our own homes. I mean, even with our parents' experiences, how they've seen their childhood, how their times were, our grandparents, because our generation somehow, I think we sometimes take it for granted with this oral tradition, Oh, mugando oral tradition, paray ahishe, na? But that's it. We don't go further. And what you've said is so much. I mean, a lot of our listeners would be agreeing to it, that we've missed out a lot of things. And the gap is so huge now. But I guess it's not too late, even if we're able to cover some few more gaps during our time, right? And these storybooks, perhaps it is collecting dust, but these are real assets. We may not be reading, I'm telling you, I have like tons and tons of books and trunks, and my father is like, are you starting a library? You have not even opened the first page. I was like, yeah, but my nephews and nieces, it's for them, and we wouldn't be able to get those books again, because they're very less published books. And I love collecting, honestly. I don't know, I have this craze for collecting, trust me, but I have not opened a page yet. But I have all the author's signature, because I know it's valuable. But it's not there in me, naturally, for me to read books unless I'm doing a research. So there has to be a purpose attached to it. And my father keeps saying,
we should come up with more research projects for people to
yes,
read.
yes, exactly. I mean, for people like me. But there's also something that I learned from an elder. If you're not a reader, pick a book that is just like 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And that's how you increase your time, So if you're not a habitual reader, or you don't have an interest in reading, pick up a book where you can actually take with you, for a journey, and you know exactly how much time you're going to be spending time. Or if you're in a toilet seat, you just know the Tinkle Comics does the best, or the Archie Comics. It's a favorite time. So the point here is, get into it. but not in lump sum, take small baby steps. And actually it had increased my interest, honestly, because those short stories, it helps me focus on those stories for that little time that I have, because I don't want to carry a big book. So there was a debate, Rita, I don't know, what do you think about this, the Kindle, right? So people say they love the smell of the book, and the replacement with a Kindle is something many don't want to do it, because obviously it's easy to carry, it's light, you get to have access to many books online, but nothing like holding the book, smell of the book, and reading it.
Nothing like it.
Yeah.
Feeling the pages in your hands.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was also, what do you think? So a lot of these novels, let's say, or books have been translated into films. And people say, hey, you know what? The book is much better than the films. So what do you have a say in that? Why do people say that? What happens in the translation?
Gets lost, maybe. Gets lost in translation, maybe. I don't know why people say that, but personally for me, like nothing like, having a physical book in your hands, feeling the pages, the smell of the books, like you've mentioned it all. And a lot of times people have also advised us that we should go into publishing ebooks, that the market for those books would be bigger, but I have not yet ventured into that area, because personally for me, I love physical books and nothing beats it. The experience is totally different.
So this also makes, as I listen to you, something pop into my head. How do you decide that this amount of books should be printed? Because this first edition, second edition, and the next thing we know that, the third edition cannot be made, So can you just help us also understand that how does this edition also evolves in it? Yeah.
Yeah, because our market is also very limited in Nagaland, the book market. Books are generally very slow, painfully slow. It takes years to, sell off a particular title. But so initially we were starting with a print run of 1,000 copies. But after a couple of years, we also decided there is no point, keeping those books in the shelves and just, like you said, collecting dust. But so we decided, like, for some books we would start with 500 copies of print run, and that's what we have been doing, except for some other books. For some books which we start with 1,000 still. Yeah, and there's a very interesting book that interesting sale of book. One of our titles, it's a poetry book. Last year we published a collection of poetry book written by Ina Holly, and despite, like I was saying, there is no market for poetry, people don't understand poetry, that particular book sold like 1,000 copies within a week of that launch of that book.
Wow.
And I mean that, so subsequently we had to go for a reprint immediately, and I think that's something very promising, because poetry can still sell.
1,000. I mean, that's just locally, are we saying?
Yes.
My goodness, 1,000. I mean, of course, outskirt, it's nothing, but for us, it's a big thing, because I've seen.
No, even for outside, I think that is
Really?
remarkable, because
Really?
nowadays many mainstream publishers do not accept poetry manuscripts anymore. So, but for me, there is no stopping.
And why? What could be the reason?
The general belief that poetry doesn't sell. Yeah, so unless it's a very renowned, accomplished poet, like, they don't accept poetry manuscripts.
That's very interesting. So I'm sure the listeners wouldn't get discouraged, but in fact get encouraged, because we just got to hear that, 1,000 copy being sold in Nagaland is huge, and also even in the outside market. And poem seems to be, rated top among the other categories. And I think this also speaks a lot about, like you've said, Rita, as you remember, your time with your grandparents, storytelling, something many of our generation have missed out, and many did not have we're not even fortunate to be with their elders and walk with them, be part of their life. And also we're getting to see how many of our elders are also landing up in old age homes. Just yesterday, before I came up to Kohima this morning, I saw it on the YouTube, and I think this is in Germany. There's a initiative where old people make friends with young people, and it's amazing. And they get to do all this storytelling, sharing time together.
Wow.
And it's actually to address loneliness among the elders. And the COVID-19 had really hit hard, especially on elderly people. And I just saw that before I came up, and I said, you know what, this is the beauty of it. How physical touch, physical presence heals so many, wounds of, and loneliness is one of the biggest disease where each one of us experience in our lives. And reading books and writing books, you see, why I'm encouraged by writing books and I got fascinated was because, like, for example, we often think that talking is the only way to reach out, but writing books, it reaches many, many people. Things which you can't say personally or physically, the book says it all. And to be able to express in writing, it's so beautiful. Because the translation is different in speaking and in writing, because all these forms of expression, it just makes us better. And I'm so happy on behalf of the community radio, you actually said yes, because the camera is not on our face.
I know.
And I know there are a lot of things to talk about writing, but I really want us, and I want you especially, if PenThrill can actually think about a storytelling festival, because it doesn't have to be big, Rita, small, right? And really use those little library spaces, bookshelves that we have come
Yes.
about, or even, something, where there's fun, but there's also, these are ways of encouraging us to have a better listening skills.
Sure, I would love that.
Because recently, as I said to you, I was reading my pre-recordings on 3 books, and how it helped me, and it's so therapeutic for me, because I'm focusing and I'm being there, part of that book, and I'm not haywired, So as an RJ, when I read those 3 different books of 3 different categories, it made me feel so fulfilled. That's another experience altogether. So, reading of books in our radio station, of course, nothing like having the author coming in and telling the journey of the book and how she or he have experienced it. But as an RJ, I felt that it's so good, and I'm hungry for it, honestly speaking. And I hope our listeners also get to pick up a book that they may like or they may try, but start with a small book, which you can read in a short journey, and that's how you cultivate,
Right.
reading and listening. So Rita, let's get to a little lighter note, because it's been on the heavier side. What is it that, how does your day look like normally?
I'm with books most of the time.
You're practically married to the book.
Right.
So what's your favorite book,
Oh, favorite.
if you were to pick among the hundreds?
My latest favorite is Where the Cobble Path Leads by Avinyo Kire.
Yes.
I totally enjoyed reading the book. It's one of those books that keeps haunting you in a very good way. Yeah, so I haven't read such a book in a very long time, and it felt so good reading her book, and that too from a Naga author.
Yes. And when you write a book, what happens to you? Do you cocoon yourself? How does a writer take time out?
I lose myself in that particular book that I'm writing. But as for poetry, it's not like you sit down and finish that particular book in at one go. But I think poetry happens to me on different days. So
Oh, so that's interesting because you just can't be sitting for 8 hours and scribbling. It doesn't happen that way,
no,
right?
no, absolutely no.
Well, I'm just trying to be imaginative and help our listeners also understand that people don't sit for 8, 10, 20 hours. And then, because, hey, listen up, because there has been quite interesting conversations, among our friends and people who say, how do they write book? Do they just lock themselves up? Because the idea or the imagination or the image that is shown, let's say in films,
No, I think writers
you know what I
have
mean?
their own way
Yeah,
of
ways of
writing. But yeah, for me, it doesn't work like that.
So we've had guests, all right, who says, "Hey, can I come up and stay?" They would like to be in a secluded place, all right, to write books
Yeah, yeah.
for
Yes,
inspiration and
yes.
also to be away from distraction,
Of course,
right?
yes, yes.
So there's a certain imagination or image that is drawn towards writers, right? So I was just trying to
Right,
get it from you. How do you write your poems? Is it like so that even the listeners get to have an idea that for some it works like this, for some it works
Yes.
like that. So
Yes.
just taking your example,
Sure, yeah.
where you said that it's not something that you sit the whole day and you scribble, and then it's a complete book. I think by now everybody would have written a book by now. Rita.
In fact, I don't even like when I'm writing a poem, like I don't even think about publishing it. So it's like maybe I'm sitting here inspired by nature. I'm a nature lover, so maybe I just some verse just came to mind and I have it written down, but I don't think of publishing it. I don't think of the audience. I don't think of readers. Like it's just me and my thoughts and my feelings and expressions. And then later, like you write one poem, finish another, and then it becomes a collection. Yeah.
Wow. For me, I'll tell you what my idea of poem is. It's so rhyming, It's like, I don't know, but I found it so, sometimes as you say words and mix and it's so rhyming. But by the time you want to write, you forgot about it. So I go through that a lot. And I'm just laughing at my own self. And my friends are like, what's wrong with it? Nothing. You won't understand.
No, it happens, I think,
Yeah?
like when some certain words come to your mind, if you don't note it down, you forget it.
Yes.
It also happens to me. Yeah.
Gosh,
and I regret not having written it down.
Yes. So it is proven that human beings have short memory. Oh God, Rita, I think this has been wonderful getting to hear from you. And I think everybody, okay, they also think that writers are bookworms. Is it true? I mean, they love book, but they're not literally like making holes in the book, right? Because they're bookworms. Stupid joke. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Writers are bookworms.
That's what
Did
people
you say?
say. Yeah.
I mean, it's important to read if you are to be a writer. Like, you have to keep reading as much as you can. But what's your definition of bookworm? Like, you're like...
Basically, 24 hours into books, nerdy.
Not necessarily.
Not necessary,
No,
right?
No.
I mean, that's a
No, because sometimes
typical...
like, it takes... If you have time... Now, for me, reading has also become a luxury because I have too many other things to do. Like, I'm reading manuscripts more than reading published books. But if you're really interested, like if a book has really interested you and you're engrossed in that particular book, like it takes you just a couple of hours to finish a book. So some people take a couple of hours in a day to finish a book, or maybe a few days to finish a book. So not necessarily.
There are people who just go marathon, even the lights out with the torchlight under their blanket.
Yes.
So that's like kind of craziness about reading books.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into last two questions that I have in mind, and I hope you are okay with that. You have said and you've expressed very clearly that this journey has been all alone by yourself with no fundings from outside, and that's a hard stuff, and to survive. How do you see yourself doing that in the next, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? How do you want PenThrill to actually evolve?
Yeah, so the plan is to have more people with me as a team now. Like when I say that I've been doing all these by myself, I meant like there was never a regular employee with me, PenThrill, but for a lot of things, I outsource it, like for layout and designing of the book. So there is this designer who always does that, and I pay him on a book project basis. So it's not a monthly salary, but per book that he makes. And also, I rope in people whenever the need arises, like for either for editing services or to be when there are book fairs or book exhibitions that we have to be present. I rope in people and part-time, like just for that particular occasion.
So it works out well.
Yes, it does. But ideally, I would definitely love to have a proper, regular
People
team.
in the payroll,
Yes,
right?
yes. So that is happening soon, actually. So
Wow.
yeah.
So, what would you suggest if for people to, if they were interested into get into publication? Advice,
Get into publication as an author getting published, or to work in a
to be a
publication
publishing
house.
house, or
Okay.
to start a publishing house,
Or
if
to
that is
start
the right way.
to start a publication house.
Mm.
I mean, like, go for it if you have the passion for it, if that's something that you really want to do. Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, just for the heck of it, no one should get into it and stop midway.
We
Like-
we still have a lot of people going to Guwahati, right? Isn't it, to publish things, books and stuff like that. So because at the moment it's just you and the heritage, right?
No, there are more.
I mean, there are more, but what I'm
Yes.
trying to say is that it's evolving.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So the market is already open, right?
Mm.
But there would be some potential people who would like to invest, correct? Invest in they may not be into books, but they may be
Yes,
interested in the
yes,
business
yes.
model, because it is worth investing. So my question of answering you that was, I'm sure there are listeners, business people who may be interested in publication or publishing houses, how they're surviving, or what are the ways to engage and also collaborate. In that sense, how would you encourage young people? What kind of investments are needed? Because I know in my field,
I
you would
started
know.
literally with nothing, so I wouldn't know what to say regarding that.
So now that we know that you're evolving and you're going to have full-time workers because of, I mean, it's about time for yourself to say that, but trust me, even us also, we don't have full-time workers, because it's impossible to survive on your own. But if we're good in finance management, if we're good in learning the relevant subjects to stay afloat, I think that's something that keeps us stay on track,
Yes.
And I think as far as we've listened, you've got good people who have really supported you, because I'm telling you, Rita, we don't make it alone. And this
I
is something
know,
I've
I
been
know,
saying
I
it, and
know.
listening to your story where your parents, your family has been so supportive, it just widens our confidence, that we're not alone in this.
True,
And this is something our young people need, that support, to dream, and to work towards the dream. Because dreaming is not going to be enough. We need to work harder and
True.
meet the wrong people, meet the right people, make mistakes, but also come back on track. Because a lot of times we lose track and we give up too easily. Has there been a situation when you wanted to give up?
No, there were times I was really tired of doing,
Everything.
but not to the point that I wanted to give up. And I think if I have survived 8 years, almost 9 now, without many things in place, I think we are here to stay.
The government never got in touch with you?
No.
You never approached the
No,
government?
No.
Wow.
No.
So my friends, my dear listeners, I think this is such a beautiful example where somebody has really experienced it, and not that she's saying that she doesn't need. Absolutely she needs. Who doesn't need support? But I think it's also about challenging ourselves, how far we can go by ourselves, and taking every bit of support that we can garner along the way. And I'm sure, Rita, you're not the same person like 9 years back, right? Isn't it?
No, I don't think so.
What has been one thing that has changed you or built you up with this journey of yours that you have taken? I mean, you're the same Rita, but what has been added more in this journey in your life?
I think I've had a very enriching experience over the years, like working with many different authors and doing different genres of books. Um, the best part of it is like you never had to go out looking for authors to come publish with us, but they come looking for you, and it's it's amazing how the state of literature has grown from that time when I was growing up, when I did not even have access to like to writing in particular as a profession. But now I see that even children at very young tender age, they already know that they want to be a writer, so which is a good thing. And I think there is a lot of hope and promise for the state of literature in Nagaland.
And on that note, I think it's fair enough and it's important to mention how late Temsala, a pioneer, a prominent figure, has left a mark, a legacy, Did you have a personal experience with her through the books, and a personal journey with her at some point? Or would you want to share something about her? Because I think she has been a real inspirational figure for many, many, and especially the writers.
She was absolutely, like you said, she was a pioneer in the field of literature from Nagaland. And I've had the good fortune of knowing her personally as well, even though we were not like great friends and, catching up and stuff. Like there were some literature workshops or symposiums that brought us together, and she was always very gentle, warm, like the kind of warmth that she radiated. It's something else. And it's such a great loss for our state to have her gone, but I think her legacy will continue to live on.
Very true, Rita. And to complement that, a dear friend of mine, she rang me the other day to express thanking and saying, Gugu, thank you so much. And I said, why? What happened? And she said, you gifted me one of, late Temsala's book. And the day she got to know that, she passed away, she looked at that book and she said, it's such an asset.
Yes.
So it's not just the Nagas who have lost it. A lot of people outside our communities, who have celebrated her, who have known her, they continue to mourn the loss. And I think it is a great loss. And even the Prime Minister of India has acknowledged. And that shows how the kind of mark that she has left in all of us. And I think this is something that we all should pursue and progress in leaving the good legacy behind that defines our people also. So Rita, a lot more we can talk about, but I can understand that just one note to end with. What is your message? And I think I'll just leave that to you for you to express yourself as Rita. What is your encouraging words or any thoughts that you would like to share with our listeners?
Keep reading, keep writing, keep documenting stories.
And come to Rita. Yes, listeners, we're wrapping up our conversation. It's been a wonderful time spent with Rita Krocha. She has been amazing in sharing. She was actually very nervous doing this and thankfully there was no camera, as I said, because I wouldn't be nervous at the same time. But radio is such an interesting medium where we actually get to hear each other, listen to each other, and also gather a lot of information which sometimes we're unable to do physically. So we hope that you have enjoyed our conversation, you have learned something valuable, and it will prompt you to read more. As we said, read little by little, not in massive way, but if you could just pick up something that interests you and it's part of you along the journey. And if you would like to write, you know where to find Rita. She is in Kohima. Her office is here, and PenThrill Publication House. And as she said, it's the pen and it's the thrilling side effect of writing, which we feel that all of us can do, and we have the ability to do if we give time to ourselves to write. So with that note, we sign off, and thank you very much, and hope you continue listening to 90.8 Hills FM. So we are signing off, and bye. Say bye.
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 That was indeed a captivating conversation we have had the privilege to listen to, courtesy of Rita Krocha. Her insights and experience have truly enriched our understanding of art and culture. All right, listeners, stay tuned. Let's savor one final treat, a mesmerizing song by one of our talented local artists. This is Castle by Polar Lights.
I'm running away from the warmth of a mother. Say my goodbyes, I'll miss the breeze and the kiss of a lover. I'll leave a note, apologies to my older two brothers. You'll have the world down at your feet, oh. You'll have the world down at your feet, oh. I'm running away from the sickness that gives me up at night. I tried to reason with the voices, am I losing my mind? And I can't believe I found a girl in my dreams. I can't believe I found a girl in my dreams. I can't believe, oh. So tell my precious that I miss her. Don't judge me for the sins that I left resting on your shoulders. There's more to life than just the flashes and your camera pictures. But I hope you find the time to look beyond the mirrors when your world comes crashing. I hope you find someone to keep that heartbeat racing in sickness and in health. I hope you find your true religion, your sun and stormy weathers. Cause half of all these books just preach about his faith runs deeper. I'm running away from everything that I know, and all of the lights that mend the cracks in my bones. I'm running away from everything that I know. You build us a castle but it don't feel like a home. So to my father, yeah, I'm sorry that I dropped out of college. I couldn't give into the rituals and pretend to be honest. I know you hate the fact that I chose to leave that world behind. Your name around my neck was like watching the world with blurry eyes. And I don't mean the phrase with disrespect, cause I owe this life to you. So I'll take off the rope around my neck and leap right off the roof. Oh, I don't wanna go to sleep afraid of my pillow. I don't wanna go to sleep at all. I'm running away from the warmth of a mother. Say my goodbyes, I'll miss the breeze and the kiss of a lover. I'll leave a note, apologies to my older two brothers. You'll have the world down at your feet, oh. You'll have the world down at your feet, oh. I'm running away from the sickness that gives me up at night. I tried to reason with the voices, am I losing my mind? I hope you know I wore my heart on my sleeve, though. Shed me a tear when I forget how to breathe, oh. When I forget how to breathe, oh. When I forget how to breathe, oh. When I forget how to breathe, oh.
And so, listeners, as we come to a gentle close on this episode of TaFMA Thursday, I trust you found this journey as enthralling as we did. This is Arjelian signing off with a heartfelt thanks for joining us. Until we meet again, keep the spirits of creativity alive.
You're listening to 90.8 Hills FM Radio.
This is 90.8 Hills FM radio station, using our voice to rate your choice. Stay tuned.